So before we begin, first of all, I want to mention that this shir was sponsored Lili Nishmas Chana Malka Bas Nasan Nata for her yahrzeit. I want to give a disclaimer, a quick disclaimer first, before we start. We're going to talk about various points and various historical points. Some people may know them. Some of them may be known. Some of them may be not as known. And it's not my intention here to say that I understand things that are going on. There's some things that are beyond us. But it's similar to the idea that the Rebbe Rashab writes regarding teaching Tanya. The Rebbe Rashab says, and the Rebbe very often mentions this, and mentions it in connection with many things, that with regards to Tanya, every word that it says in Tanya is exact, and therefore every word can be understood. The deepest concepts are meant and are hidden within it. And yet, the Rebbe Rashab warns that when one teaches Tanya, they shouldn't give their own explanations, because it could be very dangerous, because by giving your own explanations, you could be missing the main point. However, the Rebbe Rashab continues, when it comes to something which is connected to Avodas Hashem, to a lesson in Avodas Hashem, then not only can one give explanations, but one must give explanations, and one must go at length and in depth as long as one can to give explanations and to go deeper and deeper in the ideas, because that is the purpose in the end of the day of every single word of Tanya, is to teach us how to serve Hashem. And therefore, if there's a lesson that can be derived in serving Hashem, then one shouldn't be shy in giving explanations and in speaking at length in explanations. And it's the same thing in what we're going to do tonight. Is the main thing is to try and derive a lesson and to try and come to a practical understanding of what it means for us. And therefore, we're going to take liberties in explaining things. Obviously, everything is things that it says in Chassidus and that are explained in Chassidus and specifically in the Rebbe Sichos and Maamarim. But although we may take and can take liberties, but the main point is the lesson and the directive that we should and must take out of it. This year, as we know, is the 70th anniversary from when the Rebbe officially accepted the leadership. There was a long journey that led to that acceptance of the leadership. It began Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud, the 10th day of Shvat, which was Shabbos, Parshas Boi, the year 5710, which is 1950, which is the day of the previous Rebbe's passing. Now, what's interesting, something which was obvious and which anyone who studies the history books can see it in a very obvious way, that even from way beforehand, in fact, from the moment that the Rebbe became connected to the previous Rebbe's family, and especially since the Rebbe got married on the 14th of Kislev, Tafresh Peites, the Rebbe's word was extremely respected in the family of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Whenever one needed advice, whenever there was a question, people turned to the Rebbe, both amongst the family of the Frierdiker Rebbe, amongst Chassidim, and despite the fact that the Rebbe from way before was Nechbel HaKelim, as the Rebbe himself writes, that, so to speak, in his nature was more, so to speak, of an introvert, who wanted to be more involved in wisdom and intellectual concepts and not so much in dealing in social interaction. But nevertheless, it was obvious that the Rebbe's connection and guidance was sought by everyone, and especially from those who were close to the previous Rebbe and to his family. Specifically, from the moment of the passing of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the one who was giving the directives as anyone can see by reading what happened then, was the Rebbe, the one who was saying what to do, what should be done, how things should be done. It was clearly the Rebbe telling and giving all the directives and direction of what and how things should be done. And it was obvious also to Chassidim from the very first moment, although there was the older son-in-law, the Rashag Reb Shmaryo Gorari, it was obvious to Chassidim mostly, almost unanimously, that this is who was the one who was leading Chabad, who was giving the answers, etc. Nevertheless, in the course of the year, from Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud, 5/7/10, 1950, until Yud Shvat 1951, the Rebbe refused to officially accept the leadership, to the extent of using some very strong terms regarding his refusal to accept the leadership. When Chassidim would write to the Rebbe, and there's famous letters that are printed in the Igros Kodesh, Chassidim wrote to the Rebbe, please, we beg of you, accept the leadership. And the Rebbe said, to be a Rebbe is something which needs to have powerful strength and essential powers, etc. And that's not something that I can say I have. And the Rebbe continued in his humility to deflect the whole idea, and in fact to say the old time, the Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, is still Rebbe. And as is known from what happened during that year, the many times that the Rebbe pushed away any request for accepting the leadership, until finally the official acceptance by the Farbrengen of Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud Aleph, when the Rebbe said the maamar Bosi Legani, and the Rebbe then set out the mission for the seventh generation since the Alter Rebbe. This concept of not accepting the leadership is something which can be attributed to humility, which definitely it is. We know that the sages tell us, Habireach min hakavod, someone who runs away from honor runs after him. We know that the sages tell us one of the things which one should run away from is leadership. Public figure, public office is something someone should run away from, to the extent that even when a person goes to daven for the Amid, acts as the Shliach Tzibur, as the leader of the minyan, in leading in prayers, that's also something that when one is asked, he should originally say no 3 times, and only then should he go over to daven for the Amid. What was this concept of this whole first year? And it's obviously something which there's a lot to it, which is obviously beyond us, but let's look at something which is obviously also a very important lesson to all of us. Let's look from the very first Jewish leader, Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was sent by Hashem himself to become the leader of the Jewish people. And yet Moshe Rabbeinu refused, not once, twice, 3 times, again and again. Over and over, Moshe Rabbeinu continuously refused and argued with Hashem for many days, refusing to accept the mission of going to become the leader of the Jewish people. At that time, Moshe Rabbeinu gave 2 reasons, which are found in the Torah. The one reason is, Kvad peh ukvad lashon anochi. I'm not able, I don't have the powers, and I don't have the ability to fulfill this mission. I'm hard of speaking, I'm not an easy speaker, and therefore I'm not the one who's able to do it. To the extent Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem, Shlach na biyad tishlach. Why don't you send it in the hands of Aaron? Why don't you send this mission with my brother Aaron? Which with that Moshe Rabbeinu alludes to another reason, which we find actually is that Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, I don't want to accept it because what will happen, Aaron won't be happy. I don't want to take it away from someone else. I don't want to take this position away from someone else. What is the connection between these two things? The seeming humility of Moshe Rabbeinu saying, I can't do it, I'm not able to do it. And at the same time, I don't want to take it away from someone else. Let's look further. Let's look at another leader, a famous leader of the Jewish people, the Baal Shem Tov. Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, despite the fact that he was being given from heaven, his teacher, who was a heavenly prophet, Achia Shiloini, told him, you must reveal yourself and your path in the world. His teacher in this world, Reb Adam Baal Shem, pushed him in various ways with messengers, etc. You must reveal yourself in the world. And the Baal Shem Tov refused for 10 years. The Baal Shem Tov refused to reveal himself. He was getting a heavenly message to reveal himself, and yet he refused. A similar thing we find by the Alter Rebbe. The first Lubavitcher Rebbe had a similar concept. The students of the Maggid were traveling to Eretz Yisrael. The Alter Rebbe wanted to go with them. He was on the way, and the other students of the Maggid told him, don't you remember that our teacher told us that you have to be a leader here in Russia, in Lithuania, in these areas? The Alter Rebbe nevertheless refused. He wanted to continue. While he was on his way, he had visions of his teacher, the Maggid, who told him, you can't go with them, you have to stay here and be a leader, and he still didn't want to keep it. Until finally, he agreed and remained in Russia. So you see a set thing of Jewish leaders that for years they refused to accept the leadership. What's the reason? What's it all about? Let's examine both the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. What were they afraid of? The Baal Shem Tov said, I don't want to be a leader and I don't want to reveal the path of Chassidus because I know that if I do, there will be a great amount of opposition against me. And the Baal Shem Tov by nature and by the nature of his mission in this world was very into Avas Yisrael. His life's job was to spread the love of every single Jew. And he said, if because of me there'll be machlokes, there'll be argument, I can't accept that. And I'd rather not do it, let someone else do it if it has to be done. What happened by the Baal Shem Tov? What caused the Baal Shem Tov to agree, to accept, and to actually reveal his path and reveal himself in the world? So we're told a story that the Baal Shem Tov's teacher, Rabbi Adam Baal Shem, brought him together with Achia Shiloini. Rabbi Adam Baal Shem wrote him a letter, how Achia Shiloini, the prophet from heaven, took him to a different city. And in that city, the parents of the Baal Shem Tov came to Achia Shiloini and they begged him, our son doesn't give us rest. He keeps coming to our grave sites and begging us to beg you that he shouldn't have to be revealed. And so Achia Shiloini said, I want to tell you a story about the neshama of your son. And he proceeded to tell them about a Jew in Sfas many years ago who was a very simple person. And on the day of his bar mitzvah, he did something amazing which shook up all of the heavenly realms. Eliyahu Navi heard about this amazing thing from up in heaven, and he very much wanted to know what it was that this young 13-year-old did. And so he came to his door and he knocked on the door and he said, I'm Eliyahu Navi, I've come from heaven, and I'd like to teach you the entire Torah and all the secrets of the Torah. But on one condition, I'd like you to first tell me what it was that you did on the day of your bar mitzvah, which caused such a ruckus in heaven, caused so much joy and so much pleasure to the creator of the world. And this Jew said back to Eliyahu Navi, with all due respect, Eliyahu Navi, I'd love to learn the Torah from you. But what I did on the day of my bar mitzvah, I did solely for Hashem himself, and it's not the business of anyone else. And I refuse to reveal it to anyone. So Eliyahu Navi went back up to heaven, and the heavenly court decided that since you said you were going to teach him the Old Torah, you have to go back down, regardless of the fact that he didn't want to tell you what it was that he did, and teach him all the secrets of the Torah. And so sure enough, Eliyahu Navi taught this person the secrets of the Torah, and he became a very great tzaddik, one of the greatest tzaddikim around. When he came to heaven after 120 years, the heavenly court were judging how should we repay him for all the amazing things that he did during his lifetime. And they said, all the mitzvahs that he did once he became a tzaddik, that we can easily give him Gan Eden, the heavenly reward for. But what type of reward can we give him for the fact that he was prepared to forego studying the secrets of the Torah with Eliyahu Navi just in order to keep the action that he did solely for the sake of Hashem himself? And they decided there's nothing they can do for him in Gan Eden for this. The only thing that they can do is send him back into this world and give him the mission of revealing a new path in Yiddishkeit, which will hasten the coming of Mashiach. And Achia Shiloini said to the parents of the Baal Shem Tov, this neshama is your son, Yisraelik, the Baal Shem Tov, and that is his mission in this world. Let's look for a moment at what it was that caused the Baal Shem Tov to reveal himself. Why didn't the Baal Shem Tov want to reveal himself earlier? The Baal Shem Tov didn't only want to stay alone and stay hidden and stay out of the limelight and not help other Jews. On the contrary, the Baal Shem Tov's life was dedicated to Avas Yisrael, to helping every Jew that he could. It wasn't that the Baal Shem Tov said, I don't want to help other Jews. But the Baal Shem Tov said, I can help other Jews from my position in a hidden state. I can help other Jews from where I am and not have to cause people to have machlokes with me, people to be arguing and fighting with me. From heaven, they told the Baal Shem Tov, your life's mission is not, it's not enough that your life's mission is to help other Jews, because helping other Jews would be part of fulfilling your mission in life and doing what you want to do and what you're able to do. Your life's mission is to go beyond what you feel is your abilities, to go into a whole new state of being, to become the Baal Shem Tov, because that's your mission and that's the way you're going to be able to fulfill what Hashem wants and bring Mashiach. It was that very same thing that happened with Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, before he became the redeemer of the Jewish people, was involved in helping Jews, as we find it written in the Torah. As soon as he was old enough, he went out and did what he could to help his fellow Jews. Moshe Rabbeinu went out and spoke to the Jewish people and told them about the coming redemption. He prepared them for the redemption. All of it was good, but Moshe Rabbeinu says, let me do this from my state and my place as Moshe Rabbeinu. There's no need for me to have to go and become something new and become the Redeemer. Let Aaron do that. Let someone else do that. And there's a deeper concept which we're taught in Chassidus. Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama was from the level of Shemitah Rishona, meaning he was from the world of Tayu, the world of chaos, which is a world which is much more intense in its spiritual energy. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu was kvad peh ukvad loshen. He was not able to express himself in this world. He was able to help people in a more hidden way. But to become a leader, to bring it down into the physical world, the world of tikkun, that Moshe Rabbeinu felt he was unable to do. And so Moshe Rabbeinu turned to Hashem and he says, it's an amazingly powerful mission that you would like to give me. Give it to someone who has that power to bring it down into this world. This was what the Baal Shem Tov was saying as well. The Baal Shem Tov was of the highest level. The Baal Shem Tov's neshama was from the highest level. And he said to Hashem, even though you're pushing me to reveal myself in this world, why don't you send it to someone else who will bring it down into the physical world, who won't have to leave? Let me continue helping Jews from my uplifted state of where I am. And it was the same that the Alter Rebbe said, and the same that all the Jewish leaders said. Hashem told them, Misam Pela Adam. Hashem said, it's within my power, the power of the essence of Hashem, to take someone from the highest level and to enable him to draw down godliness into this physical world. And in fact, with this mission that was given to Moshe Rabbeinu, that was given to the Baal Shem Tov, and that was given to the Alter Rebbe, Hashem told them when Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, Shlach na biyad tishlach, why don't you send Mashiach already? Mashiach is the one who will fix the world. Mashiach is the one who will have the power to fix the physical world, to fix the world of Tikkun. Send him, let him do this. I'm on a higher level. I'm not able to do it. And Hashem said, no, the whole point is to take someone like Moshe Rabbeinu, to be able to draw down from the world of Tayu, from the higher worlds, into the worlds of Tikkun, into the world which is the spiritual world that we are involved in. Let's look at something interesting, the difference between Tayu and Tikkun. Tayu is a world of chaos. It's a world where the godly energy is intense. It's so intense that one thing is not able to merge with the other because each thing is fully intense in its full intensity. So there's one side, the side of giving, for example, can't merge with the side of holding back because there are two opposites and each one goes fully in its full intensity. The world of Tikkun is a world that merges two opposites together because of one reason, bittul. Both concepts, whether the concept of giving or the concept of holding back, they all feel that there's a godly mission that we're here to fulfill. And in order to fulfill it, we have to merge. And that enables the merging of the highest of the high with the lowest of the low. Moshe Rabbeinu came from the world of Tayu, but Hashem told him, when you realize the purpose and the mission, which that comes from the essence of Hashem, then you'll be able to fulfill the ultimate mission, which is to bring it down into this world. And in order to understand that properly, let's look at something else, another story of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe, when he was in prison, he was one of the interrogators, one of the Russian interrogators, asked him, tell me, why does it say in the Torah in the beginning of Parshas Bereshis, the middle of Parshas Bereshis, that Hashem says to Adam, Ayeka, where are you? Did Hashem not know where Adam was? Hashem knows everything. So the Alter Rebbe told him what Rashi says. And he said, it's not enough for me. Tell me a different reason. Tell me your own reason. And the Alter Rebbe said, I'll tell you the reason if you'll agree that the Torah is eternal. It's not just a story that happened once upon a time. It's a story which is for every Jew at every moment, for every person at every moment in the world. And he said, I believe that. And so the Alter Rebbe said, Hashem says to every person, Ayeka, where are you? You have a mission in this world. Where are you in the fulfillment of this mission? You live in this world for so and so amount of years and so amount of days. What have you accomplished? Where are you in fulfilling your mission? The Alter Rebbe later said that these words that he told this Russian interrogator, in fact, saved his own life. And the Alter Rebbe explained, sitting in prison for spreading chassidus, for spreading the teachings of my teachers, I was near to Kolaisa Nefesh. I felt like my soul was going to leave my body. The moment I said these words, I realized that everything is by divine providence, and these words are speaking to me, myself. And they're telling me, Ayeka, where are you in fulfilling your mission in this world, fulfilling your purpose in this world? Yes, your soul can leave your body and reach the highest levels. But what about your mission in this world, which is to be inside the physical world? That is the point that the Eibishter said to Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the point that Baal Shem Tov was told from heaven and that the Alter Rebbe was told from heaven, which forced them to reveal themselves. You may be on the highest level that there is, but your mission and purpose in this world, which is the ultimate of bringing Mashiach, bringing the highest levels down into the physical world, that can be accomplished only if you will do it as a Rebbe, revealing yourself in this world. The Rebbe for a full year didn't want to reveal himself, refused to reveal himself, refused to accept being Rebbe. The Rebbe beforehand was also helping Jews. The Rebbe beforehand and during that year, whenever someone came and needed help, even if they needed a miracle, the Rebbe did the miracle for them. That wasn't the problem. If someone needed help, if someone needed a bracha, if someone needed guidance, what was it that the Rebbe said, I'm not ready and I'm not willing to do? And the truth is, the Rebbe himself told this to us in the maamar Bosi Legani, which the Rebbe said 70 years ago. From this year, Yud Shvat, it's exactly the 70th year anniversary of the maamar. In that maamar Bosi Legani, the Rebbe told stories of each one of the Rabbeim. Stories about Avas Yisrael. And the Rebbe said that when I tell a story about a Rebbe, it's not just to tell a story. It's because if this story reached us, that means there's a lesson that we have to learn from it as well. What were the stories of Avas Yisrael that the Rebbe told about each of the Rebbeim? It were stories that show what a Rebbe is. What does that mean, what a Rebbe is? What do we know about what a Rebbe is? Take a look at the story. We can't go through all these stories, but let's take a look a little bit. The Alter Rebbe. He was in shul, davening. And in fact, in the maamar, it doesn't say that it was Yom Kippur. Other places it says it was Yom Kippur. The Alter Rebbe left in the middle of davening. He went to the edge of town, took an axe and chopped wood in order to cook a soup for a woman who had just given birth, and she was therefore in life danger and she needed to eat, and there was no one home to feed her. What is this story really saying? The fact that the Alter Rebbe went to save someone's life when their life was in danger, wouldn't every one of us do it? Let's think, what was the Alter Rebbe doing in shul, and especially if it was Yom Kippur? What was the Alter Rebbe doing when he was davening? Was he doing things for himself, or was he doing things, the highest spiritual things that do everything, that cause everything that's in the world to reach what it needs to reach? The Alter Rebbe was doing the greatest and holiest things of what a Rebbe does, which only he's able to do because he's a Rebbe. And yet, despite that, he realized, in whichever way he realized, that there's a woman at the edge of town that needs food. How in the middle of doing the greatest and holiest things, which the entire world needs, how could you realize that there's a woman, one person that needs food? And this is the idea of the difference before the Baal Shem Tov was revealed, before the Alter Rebbe was revealed, before Moshe Rabbeinu was revealed, and after they were revealed. Beforehand, he was doing all kinds of things that only a Rebbe can do. Becoming a Rebbe and accepting to be a leader means to take in my mind the mission and the purpose of creation to the extent that if there's one Jew somewhere in the world that needs my help, I'll find them and I'll notice it. and it's going to be something which is going to reach my very essence. The Rebbe said once that the greatest Mesirus Nefesh for the Alter Rebbe was to tear himself away from the great love of Mili Vashamayim, from his great love for Hashem, where nothing counts but the essence of Hashem, and to go and get involved with physical things in this world, with helping a Jew in something that he needs physically. There's a story that for many years wasn't told, and I think it was 10 years ago perhaps, or 20 years ago, I don't remember, but I remember when the story first came out. For whatever reason, it wasn't told, and it was told finally by the person with whom it happened. It was a chassid by the name of Rabbi Moshe Groner. And he had a connection, the entire family. His brother, Rabbi Label Groner, was the Rebbe's secretary, and even before the Rebbe accepted the leadership, he was already working for the Rebbe, and he also had some type of connection, whatever it may have been. He was in the Rebbe's in the office, in the Rebbe's office, and he was doing things. He would do things for the Rebbe. Anyway, it was the night before Yud Shvat, Tafshin Yud Aleph, 70 years ago. You can imagine Yud Shvat, Tafshin Yud Aleph. It was the first yahrzeit of the previous Rebbe. All the Chassidim were around and had met the previous Rebbe. It's not just any yahrzeit, it's the first yahrzeit. You can imagine what they were feeling like on that night. Tuesday night, the night of Yud Shvat. You can imagine what they were feeling like, what their feelings were. You can imagine what their feelings were, especially based on the fact that the Rebbe himself gave a letter. What are the things that have to be done on the yahrzeit? They were probably working on doing these things. They were fabrenging, they were learning, whatever it was they were doing. In addition, it wasn't necessarily a big secret. It was something which everyone imagined, that probably this year, Yud Shvat, the Rebbe is going to accept the leadership. At least they didn't know for sure, but it was something that they can imagine. And obviously they were preparing for that fabreng in the next night. In the office, in the Rebbe's office, the phone rang, and the Rebbe's on the phone. And the Rebbe and Rabbi Moshe Groner answered the phone, and the Rebbe said to him, "If it's not too hard for you, I need a favor. Can you please come over to my apartment?" And of course, he dropped everything and ran over to the Rebbe's apartment, which was then on President and New York, I believe. Anyway, came over to the Rebbe's apartment, and he finds, now you can imagine what the Rebbe was doing at that time. The Rebbe himself, we can imagine that he probably knew what was going to be the next day. The Rebbe himself knows what the yahrzeit of Yud Shvat is all about. We know that there was times that the Rebbe, people asked the Rebbe for things, or whatever it is, the Rebbe says, right now I'm involved with the yahrzeit. This was even years later. You can imagine that first year. And the Rebbe probably knew what was going to be the historic moment that would take place the next day. And in fact, the Rebbe was sitting with a pile of Sfarim open. And later, he noticed the next day, obviously, that these Sfarim were the Sfarim that were the basis of the maamar that the Rebbe was going to say, that the Rebbe said the next night. So if you can put it, the Rebbe was sort of preparing a maamar. We know the Frierdiker Rebbe one time explained how a Rebbe feels 24 hours before he has to say a maamar. He explained that his whole inside is turning over, because a maamar is not just a speech. A maamar is something which is giving over and bringing Torah from above and bringing it down to earth, down to this world. He comes into the Rebbe's apartment, and the Rebbe says, "Do me a favor, if you don't mind. I'm very busy," the Rebbe said, "but there's an important phone call that I need to make. If you don't mind, if you can keep dialing, because I keep getting it's not answering." You know, it was back in the phones back then, there were the rotary phones where every time you dial, it goes around. There's no redial button. And when there's no answer, you have to keep on dialing again and again. The Rebbe says, I need it. This is in the middle of the night. The Rebbe says, I need to get through to someone. Can you just dial until the person answers and then give me the phone? He said, sure. And he's dialing. And finally, the person on the other side answers. He gives the phone to the Rebbe. He hears only one side of the conversation. And it was obvious the Rebbe is talking to a doctor. And the Rebbe is telling the doctor that there's a woman who needs a doctor's visit. And it seemed from that side of the conversation that the doctor was arguing, it's late at night, it's freezing cold outside, it could wait till the morning. And the Rebbe was arguing, no, she needs a visit, she needs a doctor to come to her house right now. And finally, here's the Rebbe says to the doctor, if I come over to walk you there, will you come now? And apparently the doctor said yes. The Rebbe hung up the phone and turned to Rabbi Moshe Groner and said, do me a favor, I have to go out now to the doctor. If you don't mind, I have a list over here of different books and references of where it has to be opened. If you can just open the books to the right page, and this way I'll find it easier, will save me some time later. And so he said, sure, and he opened the books, and like we said, he realized that that was the maamar that the Rebbe said the next night. And the Rebbe went to get the doctor. Now, if we'll think about it, if any normal person is asked, this maamar was not just any maamar, and any maamar, a Rebbe is the only one who can say a maamar. And specifically, this maamar was the historical maamar, which was going to set the tone for the final generation of Galus, the first generation of Gola. Instead of the Rebbe going to get the doctor and asking Rabbi Moshe Groner to prepare the maamar, so to speak, wouldn't it make more sense if the Rebbe asked Rabbi Moshe Groner, go get the doctor, and the Rebbe would sit and prepare the maamar? But that's the idea of a Rebbe, and that's exactly all the stories that the Rebbe told about all the Rabbeim in that maamar. And while the Rebbe was, so to speak, preparing for the maamar, the Rebbe himself did the same story as the Rebbe told stories of all the Rabbeim. And like the Rebbe said, that when the story is told to us, it's that we should learn a lesson from it. The Rebbe set aside the most important things of the world, the historical moments of the world, to go and help one Jew that needed help at that moment, just like the stories of each one of the Rabbeim. And that is perhaps the story of what went on, like we said, Baal Shem Tov, Moshe Rabbeinu, etc. They wanted to continue being on their high level and help Jews that way. And Hashem said, when you think about the purpose and the goal of the world, then that enables you to come down and bring that light into the world by realizing the purpose and the goal of it all. If we'll look at it for a moment, we'll see an amazing thing. The Rebbe explains that the year Tafshin Yud, and specifically Yud Shvat, Tafshin Yud, Yud is the 10th day. The 10th day of the 11th month of Shvat, when we count from Nisan, is the 11th month. 5, 7, 10. The month is the 11th month. 11 shows on a level which is above the world, because 10 is the completion of the spiritual world. 11 is the level which is above the spiritual world. The 10th day of the 11th month, the 10th year, is when the world reached its completion by drawing down the level which is above the world. When the world reaches its completion, that completion is a spiritual completion. But it still hasn't reached the level which is above the world, that can transform the world, that can bring the world to the culmination of its purpose, that can bring the world to its full goal and to the full purpose of what the world's all about. The 10th year of Shvat, 5, 7, 10, throughout that entire year, the Rebbe was leading and guiding, but it was in a hidden form. When did it become revealed? When that Aleph came. The Aleph is Alufa Shel Olam, the essence of Hashem that's above the world, the essence of Hashem that enables the highest level to come down into the lowest level. That's what Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's what happened on Yud Aleph Shvat, Tafshin Yud Aleph, 70 years ago. 70 years ago is the time when the 11th, the purpose of creation was revealed. What did the Rebbe say in that maamar? In that maamar, the Rebbe explained that the ultimate goal and the ultimate purpose is not only to look for spiritual revelation, but to bring down the essence of godliness. And the essence of godliness is revealed specifically in the lowest place. What's in the lowest place? That's where the purpose can be fulfilled. And that's where we as the seventh generation can fulfill our mission to bring the Shekhinah down here into this world. And time is running short. So even though there's a lot more to say, but we'll get to the crux of the issue, and perhaps maybe another time we can talk more about this amazing maamar. But the number seven shows on completion. The number seven shows on bringing it down into the physical world, fulfilling the purpose and the fulfillment of what it's all about. This year, 70 years later, 70 years not after Tafshin Yud, when the Rebbe unofficially began his leadership, but rather 70 years of when this leadership was revealed, when it came Aleph, when the Aleph came down. 70 years later is Tafshin Pei Aleph. 70 years later, again, we're dealing with an Aleph. It's the culmination, the 70. We're going into the 71, the level which is above 70. And what's it about, the Aleph? The year is Plois, Arenu. Plois is wonders that are above nature. Arenu means to drive down into the world. It's interesting, there were 42 years from the time Tafshin Yud Aleph. 42 years in which the Rebbe, in a revealed way, led us, just like the 42 travels of the Jewish people in the desert to go to Eretz Yisrael. And then Hashem decreed that there are another 28 years after that. 28 is koyach, the concealment, but the concealment that gives the power for everything to be revealed, as the Rebbe explained so many times in the maamarim, that koyach is the power for it to be revealed specifically in this physical world. 42 and 28, that's the culmination of 70, which comes from the merge of the 42 and the 28. And the Rebbe told us in that first maamar, and the Rebbe said many times that in our generation and in our time, every one of us is an extension of the Rebbe. The Rebbe said that in the time
But Wagner, we're battling to you. I wonder if it's your side or our side.
Looks like the Zoom was telling me that I'm going over time. But I'll just finish off the idea quickly. Hello? Just quickly finish off the point, the practical.
I can hear you. We can hear you now, but I lost you for a few minutes.
But the practical point, that's for every one of us 70 years later. We are all the Aden. We are all the ones that have that power to draw down this which is higher, this which is above, this which is removed from the world, higher than the world, and to bring it down into the physical world. But how do we do it? We have to bring something new. The coming of Mashiach, that's a new concept in the same world. Okay, we'll try again. Looks like this is from the things that are so high. Maybe that's what it is. We're trying to do it to bring it down. But the point of the way we do it is by putting ourselves aside. Like the Rebbe said in the maamar of Bosi Legani, Avraham Avinu didn't even search for Mesiras Nefesh. He just searched to fulfill the mission, and that was it. If he needed to give up, to put his life in danger for it, he did that. But it wasn't like he was looking for it. He wasn't looking for levels. And that's what our job now in Tafshin Pei Aleph in 5-7.
Okay, you're back on. You're back on perfectly.
Good. Our job and our mission now in the year 5781, as it comes Yud Shvat, is to put ourselves aside and to do one thing, one purpose. If there's a Jew somewhere in the corner of the world that needs to hear the message that the Rebbe gave us to give to the whole world, whether it's putting on tefillin, whether it's lighting Shabbos candles, whether it's to hear and to learn Chassidus and to hear and learn the message that the Rebbe gives in his Sichos and Maamarim. Every single one of us has to put every aspect of ours aside, the highest and greatest things that may happen, that we may have in our lives, in order to reach that one Jew and be able to help him fulfill his mission, because that's the way that we can fulfill the mission of the world. And that's the most important thing, when we realize that our purpose and our mission is not what I'm going to get, and it's not how much I can learn or daven or anything as great as that. It's one thing and one thing only, to bring the world to its fulfillment, to bring the coming of Mashiach. And when we realize that and put everything else aside, that's the mission and that's the lesson we can learn from 70 years ago. That's the mission, that's the lesson that we can fulfill now. By deciding we're going to do it, we're going to draw down this light of Mashiach, the lights of Tayu, the strong, powerful energy, but bring it into the world of tikkun, of fulfillment, of fulfilling it by bringing the world to its fulfillment and culmination. And with that, we'll merit, as the Rebbe ended off in the maamar, that v'nizke zenzach mit den Rebben da lamata, in a guf ulamata mi'asarat tvachim v'yigoleinu, that we'll be able to see the Rebbe again after the 28 power. Now the power is the fulfillment of it. We'll see it down in the physical world. so that the Rebbe can take us out of Galus and bring the world to its ultimate fulfillment.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Wagner. It was so well put. It was a great hachana for Yud Shvat, so we really do appreciate it. And to everyone that joined in, hope you enjoyed and have a great evening and a good week.